The Dearborn Independent, October 16, 1920, number 51. Mr. Ford's page. The popular vote this year will be interpreted as the nation's expression on the League of Nations, whether the people intend it to be so or not. It is the one question upon which the candidates have expressed themselves with clearness and decision. Although the people did not feel that the League was a vital issue in this election, the candidates have made it the one clear-cut issue. So, whatever else the people may believe their ballots are doing, this much certainly their ballots are doing, they are carrying a definite weight for or against the League of Nations. This much ought to be understood. Votes should be cast with this in mind. This is not an appeal to vote for the League. The idea of the League of Nations is not dependent on carrying this election. Whether by accident or design, the issues in this campaign are not forged out of the problems of national life. They have dwindled down to one issue, and that an international one. It may be due to the inability of the candidates, or it may be due to their unwillingness, but the fact is that the only issue which comes out of all the campaign talk is the League of Nations. If the candidates for the presidency were as clear-cut on matters such as coal, profiteering, food production, and industrial progress as they are on the League of Nations, the voters would have a very exact knowledge of the program their votes were going to support. But as matters now stand, the only point on which any voter can be clear is that his vote is going to affect one definite policy, and that policy concerns the League of Nations. It matters little what the voter may think he is voting for. The fact is, whichever way he may cast his ballot, he is being involved in this issue. The candidates have expressed themselves on the League of Nations more plainly than on any other issue, and every ballot cast next November will count for one attitude toward the League, whether for or against. Now, this is a rather strange turn of affairs. If the League were a burning question among the people, the situation could readily be understood. But the League is not a burning question. Few people seem to be talking about it except the candidates. And yet, just because the candidates are talking about it and pledging themselves definitely upon it, the common voter is drawn into the question whether he will or not. That is to say, one fact a voter may definitely know in this election is that his ballot is going to affect the question of the League of Nations one way or the other, whether he considers the League a vital issue or not. It is the only question upon which he definitely knows that the candidates are pledged to do definite things, one to go into the League, the other to stay out. This in itself is sufficient to bring the League back to the serious attention of the people. If their votes are to involve the League, whether they want the League involved or not. If what they say on their ballots is to be interpreted as an expression with regard to the League, they will want to consider carefully where they stand. They may wish the question of the League to be postponed, but the candidates have made it a vital part of the election. There is no use recounting the history of the question. All of us remember that the League of Nations was an American idea, and that we required the nations of Europe to pledge themselves to it before this government entered the war. The American people had a clear conception of what was meant when they spoke of a League of Nations. It was to be a society of all the peoples, by means of which a better understanding could be arrived at, and in cases where misunderstanding still persisted, an international court set up whose investigations should be thorough and whose findings should be impartial and final. It was the idea of the brotherhood of humanity placed on a sound basis of common interest. It was plain common sense applied to international affairs. Everybody was in favor of the idea of a league. Everybody is in favor of it today. But between the idea and its practical embodiment in a workable plan, a number of things have come. In this country, the principal objection was that the League, as at present planned, pledged us to go to war if some European or other nation refused to accept the League's decision. In Europe, this pledge does not seem to have awakened any resistance at all. The countries are all equally bound to enforce the decisions of the League, but none of them seem to object to it. It may be, of course, that European statesmen have thought it better to wait until the occasion arose, rather than interfere with the organization of the League at the outset. In any case, all nations invited to become members have joined, except the United States. Other people objected to the League because it did not include the countries which were at war with the Allies. This objection was made out of a sense of fairness and in the belief that there never could be a real League of Nations until all important countries were invited and until all the governments were willing to make a new start, forgetting the old quarrels. Still others objected because the Treaty of Peace was included in the Constitution of the League. There is a strong feeling, and it is growing, that the Versailles Treaty not only lacked the slightest element of gallantry to a vanquished foe, but also was cruel and impossible from the economic standpoint. These people felt that to use the League of Nations to punish the children of the so-called enemy countries for the next half-century was a misuse of the League, a contradiction of the very principles on which the League was founded. So, while statesmen haggled and while nations waited, the whole interest of the people faded into indifference. And there it has remained until the presidential candidates insisted on making it an issue, one saying that he will go into it, the other saying that he will not go into it. The revival of the question in this campaign, without any pressure from the nation, probably indicates that the candidates both know that the next president will have to meet the question of the League, whether the people regard it as a pressing issue or not. The President of the United States cannot put the League away in a drawer in his desk and forget it. He will have to do something about it. The people may not feel especially concerned with it, but he will have to concern himself with it. The entire question will be a legacy left to him by the present administration. Even if the next president were inclined to postpone definite action with regard to the League, it is doubtful if Congress would be so quiescent. And there is this possibility. We may yet see a question which was dormant during the campaign become very active after the election. When actual proposals for definite action come up, for or against the League, we may witness the arousal of the public will and conscience. We know that today the League is still a thrilling question in Europe. It may regain its former idealistic position in the United States also. It is entirely improbable that any president of the United States would take a step with reference to the League which he felt was in opposition to the will of the American people. That is to say, even if a candidate were elected who pledged himself not to go into the League, he could not very well shut the United States out from participation in the League if the unmistakable will of the people was to go into it. The League is not a relation between governments or administrations, but between peoples, and the peoples themselves have the deciding voice. Yet, if it so happens that the voting shall be the only expression which this country will make on the question, the next president will have the right to believe that the vote represents the position of the people on the League of Nations. It is this fact that makes the ballot so important this year. The voter ought at least to consider his vote with reference to this question. He ought to consider his vote in the light of what may transpire in the future. If he intends to be against the League as a steady attitude, all right. If he intends to be for it, all right. The point is, when he votes this year, his vote constitutes a vote on the League. Whatever is right to come, will come. Whatever is right to be withheld, will be withheld. Whatever is right to be modified, will be modified. Only let us know what we are doing.